Been around the world and I found a good book to read. What is up, you guys? This is a segment I'm calling Books Around the World, where I highlight books in translation from other countries besides the United States. Head nod towards different cultures, different languages, and just reminding folks that, hey, if you go an entire year and you haven't read a single book by an author who wrote in a language other than English, to maybe just take a step back, stop what you're doing, get help. Today we're going to Austria, Greece, and Argentina. 3 books, 2 of which I have not read. So this will be quick, really a TBR plus 1 book review for one I have read and I absolutely loved and highly recommend. We have Malina by Ingeborg Bachmann. This was translated from the German in 1971 and has a 2019 reprint. This is the only novel by Ingeborg Bachmann, a philosophy scholar, at one point a former lover of Henry Kissinger. Interesting person. She had some difficult substance abuse issues and actually set herself on fire and died not too long after this book. This is not, about a virus more known as love. And take that, coronavirus. She writes, I've accumulated more antibodies than you need to be immune. Mistrust, indifference, the fearlessness which comes from too much fear, and I don't know how Ivan coped with such resistance, such impregnable misery. So it's kind of a love triangle psychological thriller set in Vienna, deeply existential, deals a lot with war trauma, and kind of the rise of fascism in the human soul. Very dark sense of humor, and folks describe it as enigmatic and a dark fairy tale told as a murder mystery, Kirkus Review says. So I'm really interested in it. Again, it's the single novel by this person, Bachmann, and I think it's had a lot of under the radar prestige for a long time. So a new translation from the original translator, and people are kind of talking about this book more and more. Plus this edition has a preface by Rachel Kushner. Did Mars Room and some other ones in recent years that I really love. So really excited to start this one. Doesn't sound like a walk in the park, but hey, that's not why we read great books, right? Malina by Ingeborg Bachmann. Got my coffee. Okay, the next one, kind of similar to, I think, some of the style and aesthetics we get in Bachmann. This is The Incompletes by Sergio Chejfec. I think I'm saying that right. I watched some YouTube videos to try to get it right. He is an Argentine sort of stream of consciousness writer of renown, and I think his reputation has been building more and more kind of in the world of letters that he fell on my radar. Got a recommend from a friend back east. And if you look up this guy's career, he's had more and more translations through all the 2010s. Now he's a professor in New York. And a lot of his books are always international in scope. You know, they have multiple settings between all the different characters. I guess from this one, we're going to Argentina, to Moscow, and elsewhere. Dealing a lot with political violence in the past, but also kind of reflection. The main character in this is trying to describe what happened on a pier in Buenos Aires when he sees his friend go off on a voyage, but it ultimately just kind of digresses from there. So it does sound like a bit of a challenge again. You've probably watched enough of these videos to know that Trevor likes some of the more challenging books, even if he might not be able to make the best sense of them. Let me read a short passage I cut and pasted here onto my notes. A hotel in a foreign land. Felix could imagine himself living a borrowed life there as he could almost nowhere else. A life that was decidedly his, but whose details could easily have been assigned to another. All it would have taken was the smallest difference, being just a few minutes too early or too late, to dispel the sequence of actions that had delivered him to where he was. I kind of get, I haven't read it yet, so I'm going to come back to you with my read on this, but kind of comparisons to like Paul Auster in a way, like the abstraction and a mind kind of caught in rumination, and also Roberto Bolaño, the Argentine, Mexican, Spanish writer who died earlier in the 2000s, Savage Detectives and all that. So this guy is kind of the newer name in Latin American letters, or one of the newer names in Latin American stuff that I really had to check out. So this is a shorter one of his. Library doesn't have it yet, but look out for that in the catalog, and I'm gonna let you guys know what I think. Good Will Come from the Sea. Now this one the library does own, by Christos Oikonomou, Greek writer, originally published in 2014 with an English translation coming out in the States in 2019. The sea is contrary to human nature. Only monsters can survive on islands. Monsters are gods. Look at Christ. Only he could walk on the waves. Only he who conquers death can conquer the sea. Again, this book is not for the faint of heart, not a beach read per se, although it's readable enough in its style and delivery. The content is rough going, kind of a moral reckoning in post-austerity Greece. It follows a group of Athenian internal refugees, folks basically running from unemployment and cost of living issues in Athens, and now they live on an island in the Aegean Sea that's mostly controlled by cartels and gangsters and kind of just local mafiosos, where nothing can really get done. Everything's controlled. There's very few prospects. And an interesting fact I read that kind of backed up sort of the world you're entering into if you read this, that in the past decade, younger Greek people have taken on agricultural work at the highest rate in 35 years. Basically, they're moving from the cities to the countryside, and this is a complete reversal of most of the 20th and even 19th century, really. People trying to take on more work in rural areas in Greece because there's just no livability in the cities. And for people who kind of follow the socioeconomic fate of Greece ever since the mid-2000s, this is kind of a fictional checking in on just how life is going. And it ain't pretty. Just absolute desperation, exhaustion, weakness, morality at the edge of everything. The island is kind of this metaphor of a limit of possibility where the sea and the horizon are the only remaining hope, but they're hope that's just always in the distance. And it's 4 different stories. A man stands up to the local gangsters only to pay a huge price. A man in a wheelchair obsesses over the abuse of a young girl next door, but he's really helpless to do much. A young couple struggle with dreams of opening a restaurant, but they have to deal with organized crime and bureaucracy. And an older man wanders in desperate search of his missing son. So it's really bleak, but with strong comic elements. I think I laughed a couple times in this, as well as, it just feels like a lot of hand-wringing and a real human soul at the heart of it. And just kind of defiance against overwhelming oppression and the suffocation that poverty and unemployment brings. So I think it's a book of our time, so timely, especially now with things in the States kind of on trend the way they are. This is a good book that makes you feel not alone in the state of the world bothers you. And it ends with this really striking image in the last story of a couple flying kites on the ashes of a burned down building. So that's our books around the world. Not a happy time, but I think books that'll make you stop and reflect and check in. And again, I'll follow up with those other two that I haven't read. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys next week. And always remember, read more.